Hey guys, Jerry Berg here, the Poor Historian, and I have a video that I've wanted to make for you for a while. And the concept is talking about the different qualities of replica swords that there are out there. So what I have here are three different versions of what are essentially the same type of sword. They are model 1850 foot, or one of them is a staff and field officer sword from the Civil War. And so the point of this video is not to point out the historical inaccuracies or how close or how far they are from the originals, but are actually to talk about the different types of replica swords that are out there. Also, apologies, it is about 88 degrees out here in Michigan, and we just finished a Civil War saber study session, so I'm just a little winded right now, but we'll see if I can muscle through it because I really want to get this video out. So I want to start at the bottom of the ladder, and that's this one. I haven't cleaned it yet, I actually just got it, but what this is the staff and field officer's sword, because you can see it has a little bit of an extra guard here, but in terms of historical accuracy, there's really not much going on with this one. This one would be the bottom of the ladder in terms of quality. And the way that you can tell that, the reason it is because this is what you might call a tourist sword, or basically it's pumped out from India from one of the many unnamed factories, and you can identify it usually by looking here on the blade. And you can see, I don't know if you can see it well or not, it just says India right there. It doesn't say a name of a factory, it doesn't say, any sort of historical marking. It isn't a replica or a defarbed, as the Civil War reenactment community would call it. It just says India. Those of you with a good eye will notice there's a lot of problems with this sword when it comes to the originals. The curve, the length, the scabbard, just a ton of things with this one are wrong. So if you're getting a sword of any model or any historical copy, and you're getting one that says made in India, and it doesn't have an actual name of a company associated with it, nothing wrong with it if you are using it, for example, for maybe a non-historically accurate costume, a wall hanger, something to look pretty, or in my case, scavenging parts from it, because I'm going to remove this horrible stainless steel blade from the hilt, and then put a HEMA sparring saber blade on here, so I'll have a Civil War sparring saber for HEMA. But we're talking about historical replicas right now for reenacting. So this one's bad. I got this one used for about $35. You can get them new for about $50. Amazon has a lot of them, especially on Prime. So if you need a sword really fast, but you don't care about quality, Amazon Prime's got you covered for about $50. So that's about the price range that you can get these guys in. Things to note, it is not sharp. Though stainless steel swords have been known to be sharp, that does not indicate high quality. This one at least had the foresight to know that it should not be used and was smart enough to remain dull or blunt. The blades are almost always stainless steel, which are not very good for much of anything of this length. And as you can see, it's supposed to be stainless steel, and it is still pretty stained up. I don't know what happened to this blade in its life, but something bad happened to it. I got this one used, but if you get it new, it's definitely going to be a lot prettier looking than this one is. I do want to jump up to the next one, because the next one is from a company that has a lot of bad reputation with it, but I personally love, kind of, bear with me. That is the company known as Replicas, Deepeeka, I believe, and which is, yes, an Indian company. It comes from India, or it is made in India. Now that is different than the generic India sword that we saw there. As you can see, this Replicas blade actually has a nice historical look to it, but that's about where it stops. Replicas has a reputation, I've heard it being called online, quote unquote, a crowbar with a handle. And this sword definitely meets that expectation. It is a heavy blade, especially if you're going to be practicing techniques with it. This is not a blade that you really want to be practicing unless you're going for some sort of crazy muscle growth. It does have a pretty nasty looking etching on it, which has been getting rubbed off more or less, based on just taking it in and out of the scabbard. But it is carbon steel, which is one thing that Topeka has going for it. And the other thing that Topeka has is price. Topeka is pretty decently priced, but the negative is it's really only good for looks. They're not really good for use. They do have one other thing that I like, is that Topeka has a lot of variety. There's a lot of different types of swords, types of historical weapons that you can get from Topeka, and they just kind of pump them out. So if you really want one that looks good, if you're using it for education, using it for talks, not really using it for practice, then go ahead and get that. And in fact, some Topeka swords are actually very good. I have one that's called the Clooney, and I have the stage combat version of it. And yes, it's a little heavy. I think I've got a picture, I'll probably post it up there on the video. And it is very good for practice, it's very good for looks. It's a little wonky on the weight, but for a two-handed sword, or at least a sword that you can use in two hands, I think it's just fine. I think it's just fine. That blade was about, boy, I can't remember, it was so long ago when I got it. I think it was about $100 that I got it for, new. And I do want to clear, before I get rid of the Topeka one, Topeka usually does not say Topeka on the blade, it just says India. So you do want to make sure that if you're getting a blade that says India on it, make sure that it, if you're getting it used, for example, do a little research, see if you can find out if it is Topeka. If you're getting it new and it doesn't say it's from Topeka, chances are it's just one of these generic, you know, pumped out of the factory blades. Before I forget, there are a lot of people out there who have done a lot more research into these different qualities than I have, and they'll tell you, like, this model was outdated or retired in this year, so the sword, the replica that you're getting is from this year, which is when they used this quality steel. Good on you guys for doing that. I do not have that sort of knowledge for these guys. And the last one is the highest quality of the three that we have, and is probably the highest quality readily available to those of you who don't want to spend more than a few $100s on a sword. And this is from Windlass. So this one is, whew, sweaty. This one is a windlass model, 1850 foot officer sword, and it is much better than any of the other two in terms of handling. It's light. I can actually practice techniques with it, and it actually looks kind of good. Let me go get the Topeka real quick, because one thing that you can really tell with Topeka is the lack of quality. So looking at this Topeka hilt, for example, if you look right here on the thickness of it, you can see it just kind of looks a little bumpy. It doesn't look really well finished. And then looking at the cup here, or the guard, it just kind of looks, you know, slapdash. It doesn't look very pretty. But then we'll pull up this windlass here, and you can see all those quality marks right there, and also the edge looks much finer and much prettier. So this is just higher quality in general. This one in particular costs about $150 new. It did come to me covered in motor oil, used motor oil, so that's always a fun smell when you open the box. You want to wipe that off and replace it with something good, even something simple like mineral oil, to kind of get rid of that possibly corrosive oil, mystery oil that they ship it in. So it does have some really neat stuff. For example, it does have this historically accurate stamp here, or partially at least, of Horstman, which was back in the 1800s, an American sword making manufacturer. But then you flip it over to the other side, and it says Windlass, and again, yes, it says made in India. In fact, most of the sword companies that are out there make their swords in India. So if you're someone who thinks that a sword being made in India automatically makes it low quality, look a little deeper, because most of the companies that are out there, Cold Steel, Windlass, Hanway, a lot of them make their swords in India, at least in part or entirely. So there's a lot out there. And short of getting it custom made or finding a very small and growing smith, most of the readily available historical blades out there are made in India, and then shipped to a company and resold out here. So look a little deeper into that. It's kind of neat. None of these swords are historically accurate. They're all bad in either small ways or large ways, more often than not large ways. The biggest complaint that I have is none of those scabbards are appropriate. Yes, there were metal scabbards for the 1850 foot officer's blade, but most of them were leather, and I would have preferred to see leather for that. And then there's also odd construction things here. I did add this sword knot, by the way. I added that on myself, so it didn't come with that. But a lot of the details kind of look glossed over. For example, on the scabbard here, it does look good. It has this kind of flattened and detailed copper wire lined with a couple brass wires, I assume. But it's not the twisted braided wire that I would have expected. And then, of course, the shark skin, or ray skin, not shark skin, the ray skin on the inside is replaced with leather on all of these, or probably pleather on some of the less quality ones. So, you know, these are not perfect. These are not perfect, not by a long shot. I'm just talking about the general quality, especially for those of you out there who might be looking into getting a cheap or an affordable sword. I want you to be aware of the qualities and the varying qualities that are readily available out there. And I do want to end this on one note, especially for all the HEMA fans out there. Like I said, I'm going to be putting a HEMA blade on this guard, and that's what I wanted to note to you, and also what I noted in my review of the Hanwei Hutton saber that you can go back and look at. Do not overlook the reenactment or replica community for your own assistance and guidance for your HEMA development, because sometimes if you're using, you know, Shablowski saber to try to learn Victorian era techniques, it's not going to work for you. So what you can do is get a replica sword to practice the techniques, or take it a step farther, do what I'm doing, and get the replica sword and replace the blade so you have the proper hardware with a sparring blade, so you can actually use it in a sparring setting, really bringing you closer to that kind of history. That's all I got for you. I'm exhausted because it's hot out here. I feel like I'm swimming. So until next time, see you around.